fairy tales usually rely on a very familiar villain. You have the beautiful princess, and you have the older, uglier sisters whose petty jealousy drives them to ruin her life. That exact dynamic actually dates back thousands of years to the Roman myth of Cupid and Psyche. In that original story, Psyche's sisters trick her into destroying her divine marriage purely out of spite. But consider a different motivation. What if the wicked sister wasn't acting out of jealousy at all? What if she destroyed the princess's life out of a desperate, suffocating desire to protect her? In 1956, C.S. Lewis took this ancient myth and rewrote it into a psychological thriller. He wanted to expose a terrifying idea that the love we guard most fiercely can actually be a selfish, devouring force. To tell this story, Lewis hands the microphone to the villain. Our narrator is Orwell, the bitter, veiled queen of Gloam, and she is writing a book to put the gods on trial for ruining her life. Orwell's grievance starts in her childhood. She is physically ugly and despised by her tyrannical father. With no one else to love, she pours all her affection into raising her devastatingly beautiful half-sister, Psyche, acting as a surrogate mother. The girls grow up caught between two worldviews. A captured Greek slave teaches them reason and logic, but their daily lives are dictated by the shadow of Ungit, a faceless, bloodthirsty stone goddess worshipped by their kingdom. When severe drought and plagues strike Gloam, the priests of Ungit demand a scapegoat. They march Psyche up the Grey Mountain, binding her to a tree as a sacrifice to a monster known as the Shadow Brute. Losing Psyche completely shatters Orwell. She is left behind to survive in a miserable kingdom, cementing her lifelong belief that the gods are cruel, arbitrary tyrants who exist only to steal what mortals love most. Days after the sacrifice, Orwell hikes up the Grey Mountain. She brings a sword and a bag, fully expecting to collect Psyche's grisly remains. Instead, she finds Psyche alive. She is glowing with health and wildly ecstatic, claiming she has been rescued, married to a god, and now lives in a magnificent palace. But there is a massive problem. Orwell sees absolutely nothing. No palace, no god, just rocks and dirt. Her Greek education kicks in. Since she cannot see the palace, it isn't there. Psyche is either hallucinating or being manipulated by a vagabond. Driven by what she believes is protective love, Orwell forces an ultimatum. She blackmails Psyche into lighting a lamp that night to see her husband's face, a direct violation of the god's one rule. Psyche obeys, the god abandons her, and she is banished into exile forever. Orwell is left alone, crushed by the realization that she is the one who ruined Psyche's life. To survive the crushing weight of that guilt, she completely locks away her emotional self. She adopts a literal and metaphorical mask, donning a heavy black veil to hide her ugly face. The vulnerable sister disappears, replaced by a brilliant, stoic, and terrifyingly competent warrior queen. For decades, she rules the kingdom of Gloam flawlessly. She wins wars, reforms the laws, and builds a highly prosperous state, pouring every ounce of her repressed trauma into the business of ruling. But her entire reign is a carefully constructed defense mechanism. Beneath the facade of absolute competence, she spends her life endlessly justifying her actions on the mountain, convinced she held the moral high ground. Decades later, as an old woman, Orwell visits a foreign temple. There she hears a local priest telling the now famous myth of Psyche. In his version, Orwell is reduced to a one-dimensional, petty, jealous villain. Furious at this reductive lie, she returns to Gloam to set the record straight. She begins writing her autobiography as a formal legal complaint against the gods to prove her actions were justified, but the physical act of writing becomes a trap. As she forces herself to document the exact details of her flawless legal defense, she accidentally excavates the actual memories of her own selfish motives. Her mind unravels. She experiences a series of agonizing, surreal visions, climaxing in a horrifying moment where she looks into a mirror. She sees the lumpy, faceless visage of the devouring goddess Ungit. The truth finally breaks through. Orwell realizes her love was entirely toxic. She didn't want Psyche to be happy. She was jealous that Psyche loved a god more than her. Her love was possessive, manipulative, and suffocating. With her illusions shattered, Orwell finally understands why the gods maintained a lifelong silence. They never answered her accusations because we didn't need to. The act of writing her complaint stripped away her psychological defenses. Without meaning to, she turned her own airtight legal defense into a full, undeniable confession. Lewis leaves us with a haunting psychological thesis. We are completely incapable of experiencing true love or communicating with the divine, while we hide behind our own selfish veils, justifications, and false identities. As Orwell writes at the very end, we cannot meet the gods face to face until we have faces.